Welcome to today's episode of College Financial Preps Preparing for College podcast. So excited to welcome Lisa Goldstein of Your College Process. Wanted to make sure I say that right. So happy for her to be here today. We're going to be talking about the admissions process and how, certainly as parents, to help our kids get through that process. So difficult, and this time of year, right now, where spring approaching summer, kids are going to start thinking about where they want to apply to school and college applications and college essays. And Lisa's going to help us with that. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. Good to see you.
Thank you. Do me a favor. Tell everybody about you. A little bit about you, your business, why you do what you do.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm originally from New York, like you, and I have a master's in school counseling. And I originally started work as a school guidance counselor in New York, as a high school guidance counselor, and then relocated to Connecticut, was in a high school there. And what I noticed working in the school system is that the college process is part of what guidance counselors do, but it's not the whole thing. And a lot of students needed a lot more support and time with the college application process than really you could get in the school system, considering how many students school counselors have and all of the other responsibilities they have. So I did this a little bit on the side, private counseling, just for people I knew, people who would ask. And it kind of grew on its own. When I had my older daughter, and I was out on maternity leave, I just kept getting approached by people that either, again, I knew I had worked with a former student or a sibling or whatever it was. And I noticed there was such a need for just more in-depth college counseling. So that's when I decided to start my business called Your College Process about 10 years ago now. And so now I fully just do college consulting. So I work with students and their parents on the college application process. And this way, having the time outside of school, and it's kind of unlimited and you're not limited to like 20 minutes once a week with the student, I can really see where they are, meet them where they are in the process. Some students know nothing about it. Some know a lot about it, and then everything in between.
Here, let me stop you for a second. So there are a lot of parents with, rising seniors that, fine, we're talking about the college application process. What does that include? Like, they may not even know.
Right. Yeah. So it includes so much. It's not just the application itself. It sounds like it's just an application, but leading up to that, it's really a lot of research. Students want to have a well-researched list of schools that they can apply to based on their interests, their strengths, their needs, what they're looking for. And so this really starts ideally way before this time of year, junior year. You're starting it maybe sophomore year, not applying, but starting to research schools online. Maybe you tour a campus, just starting the conversation so that you get a feel for what is a big school like? What is a small school like? What are the differences out there? What is a school in a cold climate 2 hours from your house versus one you have to fly across the country to? These are the things you want them to start thinking about sophomore year, junior year. And then as they get through to their senior year, they have a nice list of schools that are appropriate for them. Appropriate meaning schools they are likely to get into, like a balanced list. They might have some reaches on there, but a good amount of schools that they have a chance at, that they would be happy at. Then you get to the actual application that you're filling out. You're writing an essay. I always advise to do that early. So like the summer before senior year is a good time because they're not doing their academic classes. So again, they're meeting a lot of deadlines. They're writing essays. They're researching schools. So all of that goes into the process, and it's more involved than it used to be, I would say.
Why? So what changes have you seen? I know that there's been like lots of changes that have happened in recent years.
Yeah, I'd say over the last few years, especially since COVID, the process has gotten more competitive. So for a few different reasons, kids are applying to more schools than they used to, where it used to be like maybe students apply to 6 schools, 8 schools. Now they're applying to like 15, 20, more than that. So when you have so many students applying, the schools only have the same amount of spots. So it's just driving the competitiveness up for them. So that's making it harder to get into. And so now a school that maybe they would have gotten into a few years ago is now a reach school for them, meaning it's harder to get into. So they have to start thinking about other schools. So it's kind of this cycle where now, the more schools students apply to, it's making it harder for everybody. And so they have to take that into consideration. Also, most colleges are still test optional, meaning you don't need to submit test scores. That came from COVID. And so a lot of students, they'll apply to schools that maybe they wouldn't have in the past because their scores wouldn't have fit that school. But now they figure, well, let me give it a shot. So they wind up applying. And again, it's just driving the numbers up and it's making everything more competitive.
Let me just jump in here for everybody because I always have to say this. Even though schools may be test optional, at least on my side from College Financial Prep, I always encourage everyone to take the test because if your child does well, there could still be merit scholarship opportunities. So, if you're looking for free money and your child is a good test taker, definitely take the test. I always encourage it.
Right. Yes,
right.
Absolutely.
And you don't even need to send the scores to every school, right? You could pick and choose.
Right, exactly. That's actually that's been nice with test optionals. So let's say, they have a score that is right in line with what a school is looking for, then great, you send those scores. But let's say they haven't met, the average for another school, then don't send them there. You don't have to send them to all of them. So you can kind of strategize, send to some and not to all. And that's actually a nice option. But I agree, take it at least once, see how you do. If it's not great, if it's just not for you, maybe you don't send scores, but you never know. And like you said, a lot of schools give merit money for certain scores. So it can't hurt to take it. It's a few hours out of your time. It's not the most fun, but worth trying it, certainly.
Definitely. So advice for parents, where should they begin? What do you think?
Yeah.
And how to help them? Like, it's so overwhelming for the kids, for the parents. Like, how do they ease into this?
Yes, yeah. So I would say one of the things I'm noticing, especially in the last few years, and this could be with, effects still from the pandemic, it's so hard to say, and just that things are more competitive in general, but I am seeing students so incredibly stressed out, and the parents too, so much more than they used to be. They are under so much pressure. A lot of it is self-imposed, a lot of it is friend imposed, just, social media imposed, whatever it is, they are putting themselves under so much more pressure than they used to be. So what I like to do in my work is to really try to ease some of that pressure. And I think there's a few different ways of going about it that parents can do. So one of the things is be open to a wide variety of schools. Meaning, we all know the name brand schools. Certainly there's the Ivy League schools. They're not for everybody. That's why they're just the Ivy League schools. It's for the top 1% or whatever it is. So keep in mind, there are so many colleges out there. I'm in Connecticut now, and I find in this area, people tend to apply to the same 5 schools. And what that does is it drives up the competitiveness because they're all competing against each other. So be open to schools maybe you haven't heard of. Maybe they're not playing, in the Division I, whatever sport you care about. And that might be important for you. But I'm just saying, be open to other places. There's not just the 20 schools that we've all heard of over and over. There are so many options out there. So do your research. Make sure when you talk to your kids, you're not just emphasizing, whether it's your alma mater that you really want them to go to or where their sibling went to, but other options for them so that they know if they don't get into that school, it doesn't mean their life is over. It doesn't mean it's doom and they're not going to have a great college experience. So I think being open to different places, small, big, further, closer, whatever it is, just give them a chance. I feel like a lot of people will kind of just poo-poo a school if they haven't heard of it over and over again. And once they actually visit it or give it, they check it out online, they realize it could be a really good option for them. So being open-minded about that is big. And I think it does come from the parents, making sure that they give that point of view, to be open, to check out other places. If you can do a visit, great. What another thing that came out of COVID is every college has virtual information sessions now because during the pandemic, you couldn't physically visit a school. So now they all started these virtual sessions, and those have stayed around because I think the schools realize that's a great opportunity for kids who can't get to campus for whatever reason. So it's free. You're in the comfort of your own home. Check out schools you haven't heard of. Do an information session, ask some questions, hear what they're all about. Just be open to that. And I think that will help the students go into it knowing, okay, maybe this is my first choice, but if I don't get in, it will still be okay. I'm still going to have a good college experience. I'll still have good opportunities. So that's one thing I've been trying to really emphasize with students and parents as well.
Yeah, I love what you were saying about being flexible, because not only on the college admissions side, but I'm always telling clients, the more flexible they are with the schools that they apply to, also the more opportunities there are to receive merit scholarships.
Yes.
If a child or a family is insistent on only, they only want this one school, well, that's likely not where the merit scholarship money is going to come from.
Right.
So yeah, the more you can be, open and flexible and wait and see how it all pans out with the finances, it could lead to a lot more opportunities that way also.
Yes, I totally agree. I mean, sometimes, a school that's a reach school, even if it's your first choice, right, they're likely not going to give you a lot of merit because it's a reach for you. So even if you
Right.
get
It's more the
in,
safety schools that will likely
right.
give.
So, 80 grand a year full price. If you're taking out loans, you're the expert in this. That's a lot of debt to start your adult life with. Whereas let's say your safety school is offering you 90% tuition or, whatever it is,
Right,
that's a
exactly.
really nice scenario to be in when you graduate. So I agree. I think, being open, and it's really nice to, when you get that merit aid, that feels really good. You know that they want you, they're wooing you, that says something about it. So being open to that is huge. I agree.
And just to tag on what you were saying about the virtual tours, what's also out there, like the unofficial videos on YouTube and
Yes. Yes, that's true. I know you can see a lot of students giving their own tours
right,
and
right. You
feedback,
can
which
go
is
check out
nice.
dorm rooms. You can find a lot of information online about the
Yes,
colleges.
you do. You get the insider view. And yeah, who
Right.
better to find, to learn from than the current students? They're the ones there because the admissions officers, they're obviously going to have all nice things to say about the college, but talking to students, yeah, whether you're actually talking to them or just seeing their take on it, yeah, it's really helpful.
Yeah. So tell us more about the process, the work that you do and how you help.
Yeah. So, like I was saying before, starting early is very helpful. Doesn't mean if you haven't started yet that you're in trouble. That's okay. But what I mean early, I don't mean seventh grade. That just puts a lot more pressure on students. I mean, like, just start having conversations, ninth grade, 10th grade. You're not applying yet. They're not super serious. Let's make our list. It's more like, oh, there's schools in all the different states, and there's schools with 30,000 kids, there's schools with 2,000 kids, and everything in between. Like, where can you see yourself? Just having conversations about it. It's a nice way to ease into the process without it being super stressful at first. And it kind of opens the topic of conversation. So that's something I encourage parents to do early on. And again, it doesn't, like, I've talked to the parents that I've worked with and asked them, what do you think has been the best for you with your child? What's worked? The parents that have had the least tension with their kids, I would say, is the parents that have said, we're not going to talk about this every single day and nag them every single day, but maybe once a week we set aside, whether it's dinner or we go get ice cream or we go on a walk, and say, like, all right, let's just talk about college. Like, what are you thinking? Where are you? Keep it casual. It helps, again, take that pressure off them. It's just a conversation. I know that it's hard to not always just tell them what to do. I get that as a parent, but this does kind of help them be more open with you too, and not shut down. So starting early helps that because they're not super stressed in getting everything done in 1 month before a deadline, because that's just a recipe for a disaster. They're not doing their best work, and they're a mess. They're overwhelmed, and it's not good for anyone. So starting early, having conversations, researching schools, like you said, look at those videos. If you do have the means to go visit in person, I always encourage that. There's nothing like being on a campus to get a feel for it. Even if it's not a school you think your child might be super interested in, you never know. If it's a big school, it might give them a feel for what a big campus feels like. And then you can kind of translate that to other schools. If it's a smaller school, same thing. So just being on campus is very helpful. So really researching, staying organized, helping them stay organized. So whether you're a spreadsheet person or whatever, your strategy is to keep organized, that's a really big part of it. That's what I do with my students. I make a spreadsheet for everyone where you list the schools you're interested in, and then you list different facts that are important to you. So maybe it's the GPA that's accepted there. Maybe it's the size of the school, the cost of the school. If there's a specific major your child's interested in, look at that program. So you have to decide what's important for you to start honing in on what's of interest to them. But keeping organized from the beginning is important because you'll start to get all the brochures in the mail. You're going to get so many emails from these colleges. It gets very overwhelming. So keep some kind of a running document of your thoughts about it and, some facts about the school so you can kind of keep track of that.
Yeah, and I'm going to jump in. So just to tack on to your spreadsheet, because something that I do in my practice, may also want to keep track of the fees involved, tuition costs, room and board. I mean, it's not going to be exact, assume it'll go up a little bit for the next year or so, but at least, sticker prices and see how they compare. It's not exactly what your end financial aid package is going to be. That's going to vary from household to household, but still, should be able to start comparing schools, and cost is certainly one of them.
Yes, definitely. And a lot of stress that I see is like, if you know for sure that a school is just too expensive for you, like it's just not even realistic. And again, there might be merit aid, so you can't write things off, but it's good to have an idea of that and be honest with your child of like what the situation is. So if you know that they, financially, they can handle a certain, a state school price or whatever it is for your family, it's good to let them in on that. They don't need to know what you make a year per se, all of those details, but just being aware of what might and might not be realistic can help, because I've seen a lot of kids, they'll get into these schools and they love them and then they're heartbroken because it just can't be, they can't swing it financially.
Yeah, so, no, I've seen the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Certainly, I totally agree. At the beginning of the process, I'm a firm believer, share what you have saved for college, even, this is what we can do to help cover 4 years. Everyone should know, I've probably said this before, freshmen can only take out $5,500 in student loans from the government. The federal student loans, the rest is going to fall on the parents, whether it's cash or parent plus loans or whatever. So just everybody needs to be aware of that. So yeah, I'm a firm believer in being upfront with the kids, because I've seen too many times, like, May 1st, college decision day just passed.
Yeah.
And always that week before, you have like parents and kids in turmoil because, the kid really wants to go to the dream school, but, the parents finally like come to terms with it that they just can't swing it. It's hard.
It's hard. Yeah. And then the kids, everybody, the parents too, they're so upset. And you want them to go into this period being happy, that they're excited about where they're going. And finally, this big task is done. And now they can, enjoy the rest of senior year and prom and graduation, all that, not being distraught. And that's what I'm seeing. I'm on a lot of the online, like college Facebook groups, just to kind of keep aware of what's going on. And
I'll give a plug. Our group is Prepare for College on Facebook.
Yes.
So whoever wants to join.
Yes. Perfect. But I'm seeing all these posts of students. It's really the parents that are so upset because they felt like their child worked so hard and did all these things and didn't get into the dream school. And now they're just miserable. And that's what I mean about being open in the first place. You cannot just have one school that you think will be great for you. There's so many options out there. A lot of it's a name, it's hype, it's social media, it's, talk amongst the people in the neighborhood. So that's one of the biggest things I'm trying to really hit home lately is like, please be open to other places, because college is what you make of it. Obviously there's Harvard and Yale, we all know that, but it's what you make of it, and these schools all have wonderful offerings if you're open to them. So I hate to see kids so distraught this time of year because they're upset with their options. So I think it's like we have to change the messaging from the top down so that they know just because I'm not going here doesn't mean it's not going to be a great experience.
Right. I think all the colleges, no matter where the student chooses to attend, and tell me if you agree, disagree, I think all the colleges will have wonderful opportunities, but it's up to the kids to seek them out. Kids can be partying Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or, they can be seeking out opportunities that will help them with their future career paths.
Yes, no, I totally agree. As long as you are seeking out, like you're saying, talk to your professors. If it's a huge lecture, go to office hours. If you need extra help, talk to a teaching assistant. If you're looking for an internship, go to career services, ask for help with your resume, see if there's an alumni net. I mean, every college has an alumni network. Get in touch with those people. If you want to study abroad, go to that office. I mean, it's there. You have to seek it out. Yeah, you have to be independent. And that's why also, going back to the college process itself, I encourage students to be the driver of the process because they're the ones going to college. So one of the things I see a lot of times is parents, and again, I'm a parent, I get it. You want them to get in, you want them to do a good job, you want all the things for them. But I notice parents filling out applications, maybe they're doing a little bit more with the essay than they should. We have to remember the kids are the ones going to college. If you've written their essay, that's a big, that's on the pretty severe side. But if you're filling their applications out, how are they going to thrive once they're in college if they didn't even apply and get into that college with their own set of skills? So we have to remember this is like the first step to adulthood. So let them take charge of the process. Yes, support them. Yes, proof their essays, talk to them, help make sure they're meeting deadlines, but don't do it for them because they're not going to know what to do when they get there. And that's how it all starts, right? Once you're there, you need to find those opportunities for yourself. And if they don't have those skills yet, they might not have a great college experience. So the application is really like the first step in being independent and doing this on their own and learning those skills. So that's another one I try to hit home with parents is be involved, be supportive, keep an eye on it, but don't do it for them because that's not really helping anybody in the end.
I love that. I love that. I never really thought about the applications per se as like the first step kind of towards adulthood and them, being independent and taking on these tasks. It's another task that they need to take on themselves,
Right.
whether it's, I remember the first time my oldest, called a doctor and made an appointment on his own, but yeah, it's
Yes.
another one of those tasks. They need to learn how to do this on their own to be
Right.
able to survive and thrive.
Right. And it's like they have to have some skin in the game. If they didn't do the applications, what's to say they're going to go to class or write the papers or whatever it is. And again, they're going to need help with it. There's very few students who will just completely do it on their own, but you want them to be involved, obviously, which is another thing that's important. I would say encourage parents, like always ask for help if you need it. And this is the parents, because often we know this as parents, you can tell your kids something a million times, but when the neighbor says it to them, it's a great idea, even though it's the same exact thing you said. So sometimes you do need a middle person. That's what I am often in this process. So a school guidance counselor, great resource. Make sure your student knows their guidance counselor is going to see them, is asking questions, is getting help. I know some schools have counselors with a ton of students, so maybe they can't get as much individual help. There are college consultants out there. Again, not everyone can hire them, but there's also great websites. College Confidential is one where you can ask a question and get feedback from experts. There's a lot of Facebook groups out there. Be careful with that, but they can be very helpful. So get some support. If a friend went through the college process last year with their kid, you ask them for some help. Talk to people who have been through it and can help with the process because it is a lot and it can cause tension in the family. So I do recognize that it can't always be the parent. Sometimes you need to find another person who's a help to you.
That's one of the things I love about the work that we do. I mean, different kind of work, but we're that like neutral third party in the middle of the
Right.
families, and
Yes.
helping our students grow, helping the parents and the students communicate about different relevant topics as they're going through the
Yes.
process.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's important to have a neutral party, like you said. It's
Yes.
because I get it. I'm a mom. It gets hard when you're telling your kid to do the same thing over and over and over and they won't do it. So I totally empathize with that. But I do think having a neutral party is very helpful. And it's great for the student too, because then they realize it's not that the person's on has the parent's point of view or theirs. They're just trying to help. So it helps them feel supported as well.
Definitely. I am so glad that you were here today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. This was wonderful. I appreciate it.
Do me a favor, tell everyone where they can find you.
Yes. So my website is yourcollegeprocess.com, spelled out YOUR, collegeprocess.com. And also same on Facebook, same Your College Process. So on there, and now on here. Thank you for that.
Lisa, thanks so much for joining us. And I want to thank everyone for watching this week's episode. And we'll see you next week. Take care, everyone.